Keita sits at his desk in the back of a classroom, contemplating how social hierarchy persists from school into the real world. A blonde girl approaches him and asks what he is drawing. The story follows those living on the fringes of society. Outside a coin laundry and sauna building, a cry of pain rings out. Inside the laundromat, Risa hits Keita with her phone. She tells him to stop slacking and find a job, reminding him that he quit making manga after graduating college. Keita gets up to leave, stating he will go somewhere without her and return for the laundry later. He trips and falls over. A washing machine cycles in the background. Keita reflects that his current situation is the worst. Keita lies on the floor, buried under a pile of fallen clothes. He thinks about how nothing in his life is going right. Keita reflects on his 4 years of slacking and returning home in failure. A woman asks if he is okay as he notices he is covered in women's laundry. Keita struggles under the pile while Risa tells him to help pick up the clothes. He offers a quick apology. Keita looks up after noticing something. A woman nearby mentions that her glasses have fallen on the floor. The woman picks up the glasses and hands them back to Keita. He accepts them and thanks her. Keita looks up at the blonde woman standing in front of him. Keita recalls a memory of the same girl in high school asking him what he was drawing. The woman stares at him and mentions that it is a 45. Keita points at the blonde girl and yells her full name, Tsubaki Minori. Risa asks if he is acquainted with her. Tsubaki recognizes him as Otake and remarks that it has been a long time. Keita is stunned by the sudden reunion. Tsubaki asks why Keita is there. She looks over at her laundry. Tsubaki asks for her panties back. Keita realizes he is holding them and starts screaming in a panic, while Tsubaki finds the situation hilarious. Tsubaki compares the situation to the lucky tsukeb tropes found in the manga otaku guys read. Keita acknowledges the term. Tsubaki teases Keita by asking if he still like those kinds of things. Keita tells her to shut up and move on. Risa whispers to Keita and tells him to wait a moment. Tsubaki leans over as she prepares to handle her laundry. Risa asks who the intimidatingly cool girl is. Keita explains that she was just a high school classmate. Tsubaki asks how to use the laundry machines. Keita says he is going to the bathhouse and admits he really did not want to see her again. Keita tells Tsubaki to ask Risa for help if she needs anything else. Tsubaki reacts with confusion at his dismissal. Tsubaki calls Keita cold for leaving during their reunion. Risa tells Tsubaki that Keita is currently unemployed. Risa complains that Keita has been moping and whining ever since he gave up on his dream of becoming a mangaka and moved back home. Tsubaki realizes that Keita actually tried to pursue his dream. Keita tells Risa to stop bringing up things that are already over. Keita walks out of the building. Risa and Tsubaki watch him leave. Tsubaki notices that Keita left his laundry behind at the laundromat. Inside the bathhouse, a large mural of Mount Fuji covers the wall. Keita sits quietly in the hot water of the bathhouse. Keita reflects on high school, thinking that Tsubaki's interest in him was probably just a random whim. He believes they never would have spoken to each other otherwise. Keita recalls how Tsubaki was a completely different type of person than him. He looks at the scribbles in his old notebook. In a memory, Keita apologizes for his poor drawing. Tsubaki tells him she was just kidding about it. Tsubaki asks if he wants to become a professional artist. Keita calls it just a hobby and tells her to leave him alone. Tsubaki looks at him and tells him he should just go for it. Keita wonders why she is suddenly being so supportive. Tsubaki offers her help and starts drawing in his book. Keita asks why she is just drawing whatever she wants. Tsubaki leans over and begins sketching in Keita's notebook. Keita watches her, feeling a bit flustered by her proximity. Tsubaki finishes her drawing. Keita asks if the creature is a boar, but she clarifies that it is supposed to be a cat. Tsubaki decides that as long as a drawing is cute, it is good. Keita goes along with her reasoning. Tsubaki tells Keita she is counting on him to make a fun manga. Keita is surprised since he has never actually drawn a manga before. Tsubaki smiles and tells him she will be looking forward to it. Keita contemplates how major life changes often start from someone else's casual whim. Keita finishes an hour-long session in the sauna and cold bath. He puts his glasses back on and assumes Tsubaki has already gone home, trying to leave his past as a failed mangaka behind him. Tsubaki surprises Keita by catching him as he exits. She remarks that he took a very long bath, leaving him startled by her presence. Tsubaki grabs Keita and drags him along as they exit the building. He asks where they are going, but she tells him to stop trying to run and follow her. Tsubaki looks back with a smirk and explains that draft beer is a necessity when catching up on old times. They sit at a table in a pub surrounded by empty plates and food. Tsubaki calls out for another beer while Keita sits in silence looking at his drink. Keita remarks that Tsubaki drinks a lot and asks if this behavior started in college. She seems very accustomed to drinking. Tsubaki asks Keita why he quit making manga. He tells her it is none of her business, but she argues that it is because he still has not shown her any of his work. Keita explains that his work only appeared in a magazine briefly and was never serialized. Tsubaki insists that getting published at all is an amazing achievement. Tsubaki listens as Keita continues to explain his reasoning for quitting. Keita claims that if people do not read a manga, it is as if it never existed. He believes that only interesting people can create interesting stories. Keita stares into his beer glass and concludes that a boring person like himself would naturally produce boring manga. Tsubaki finishes her drink and grabs Keita by the face. She tells him to stop with the depressing talk because he is ruining the mood and the alcohol. Tsubaki tells Keita that his self-pitying attitude is a bad habit. She says he is so focused on his own failures that he is ignoring what is right in front of him. Tsubaki looks directly at Keita and reminds him that she is right there looking at him. In a memory from high school, Tsubaki leans over Keita's desk while he works in the classroom. Keita remains silent and looks away, clearly flustered by Tsubaki's words. Keita tells Tsubaki to mind her own business and asks why she is so insistent on seeing his work. Tsubaki tells him he should just be happy to receive praise from a girl. Keita notices a ring on Tsubaki's finger while she is talking to him. Tsubaki realizes Keita is staring at her and asks him what is the matter. Keita panics when he realizes the ring is on her ring finger and quickly tells her it is nothing. Tsubaki reacts with confusion as Keita struggles to stay composed. Keita decides to keep drinking and asks Tsubaki about her plans. She encourages him to finish his drink before they head out. Outside at night, a drunk Keita staggers down the street while Tsubaki supports him. They arrive at Keita's apartment, which Tsubaki notes is quite run down. Keita groans and wishes she would describe it as having a nice atmosphere instead. Tsubaki tells Keita they are almost there while she continues to help him walk. Keita mumbles an apology for his behavior. Once they get inside, Keita collapses onto the floor. Tsubaki sighs with relief and starts looking around the room. Tsubaki remarks that the place looks like a proper otaku room. Keita tells her she should not snoop around without asking him first. Keita goes to the sink and splashes water on his face to try and sober up. Keita feels a bit calmer, but his thoughts immediately return to the ring he saw on Tsubaki's hand. Keita stares ahead in silence, looking increasingly troubled and worried. After using the restroom, Keita thinks about how it was a bad idea to let a married woman into his apartment. He then asks Tsubaki if her own home is anywhere near his place. Keita is horrified to find Tsubaki sitting at his desk and holding his manga. Tsubaki realizes that she has found his work and begins to look through it. Keita shouts at her to stop, but Tsubaki argues that the pages were just sitting out in the open. Keita tries to snatch the manuscripts back from her. Keita continues to protest, but Tsubaki firmly tells him not to interrupt her while she is reading. Tsubaki moves to sit on the bed to finish the story while Keita watches nervously from the side. When Keita eventually asks for her opinion, Tsubaki tells him she is still busy reading. Tsubaki gives the manga a score of 25 points. She asks why the story stops halfway through and wants to know what eventually happens to the girl in the story. Keita tells her that there is no more to the story because he ran away from the project. Keita lies back on the bed and explains that he felt like he was only causing trouble for the editor who reached out to him. When Tsubaki asks what he did, Keita admits that he locked himself in the bathroom. Keita recalls going to an editorial office and feeling completely overwhelmed by everything. He hid in a bathroom stall and stayed there until the meeting time had passed, ignoring his editor's phone calls and watching the sunset through a small window. Keita concludes his thought by saying that watching the sun go down actually made him feel relieved. Tsubaki suddenly leans over Keita while he is still lying on the bed. Tsubaki looks down at him and asks Keita if he is still focused on looking up. Keita reacts with shock as Tsubaki moves even closer to his face. Tsubaki leans in toward Keita without saying another word. Keita covers his mouth in a panic and stares at Tsubaki, noticing her wedding ring again as she hovers over him. Tsubaki remains positioned directly over Keita, maintaining their close proximity. Tsubaki announces that she found it as she reaches for something near Keita. Tsubaki uses a marker to draw a large mark on Keita's cheek while he lies there in shock. Keita sits up quickly and asks what is happening. Tsubaki holds the pen and tells him that his score is now 0 points. Tsubaki decides to draw the rest of the manga herself because she thinks it is currently too boring. She tells Keita she is going to draw a cat. Tsubaki sits at the desk and begins drawing directly onto the manuscript. Keita is left speechless as he watches Tsubaki work on his pages. Tsubaki hands the pages back to Keita. He tells her she was supposed to start with a storyboard at the very least. Tsubaki looks up at Keita and smiles warmly at him. Keita looks back at her, realizing he is hiding the truth of his thoughts. Keita thinks about all the things he should be asking her about, especially the ring. He admits he could not bring himself to ask because he felt that doing so would immediately sober him up from the pleasant intoxication. Keita wonders if it is fine to just leave things as they are for now. Keita gets back to work on the drawings while Tsubaki watches him with a smile. The two spend the night together in silence as Keita focuses on his manga while Tsubaki observes him from across the table. Keita eventually finishes and lets out a long sigh, questioning the nonsensical nature of what they created. Tsubaki stretches her arms and looks satisfied. Keita looks at the finished work and thinks that while the story makes no sense and is completely disorganized, it feels special. Tsubaki comments on how morning has already arrived. Keita watches her silently, still looking flustered. Tsubaki says she wants to take a bath and asks Keita to let her know when the public bathhouse opens. Keita responds with a confused sound. Keita tells Tsubaki that staying out all night is too much and that her husband must be worried about her. Tsubaki dismisses his concern and notes that he saw her ring. Tsubaki yawns and reveals that her husband is already dead, meaning she is technically a widow. Tsubaki tells Keita to keep drawing his manga and says she will be looking forward to it. Keita stands there surprised by her words. Tsubaki says goodnight and closes her eyes to go to sleep. Keita remains silent, staring at Tsubaki as he processes the information about her husband. A loud shout echoes across the exterior of the run-down apartment building. In a dark setting, a voice simply says yes. During a summer event, someone says thank you very much as the scene transitions into a memory of a funeral. Tsubaki looks on during the ceremony while someone suggests it is time to conclude. A funeral attendant invites those present to take their time for their final farewells by the open coffin. Tsubaki looks down at the deceased person and remains completely silent. Back in the present, Keita stands outside a public bathhouse and stares at a prompt on his phone screen. Keita sits in the lobby of the bathhouse and groans while frantically tapping on his phone. The receptionist watches him from behind the counter and wonders what he is doing. Keita lets out a heavy sigh of relief while holding his phone. Keita looks at the finished digital version of the manga he drew with Tsubaki. He thinks about the shaky lines and his dissatisfaction with the final touches, but admits he managed to finish it for now. Keita hesitates with his thumb over the upload button. He worries if anyone will even read it after all this time and questions if he should actually go through with it. Tsubaki suddenly peeks over Keita's shoulder and asks why he is squirming. Keita flinches in surprise as he realizes she is standing right behind him. Tsubaki mentions how she has become a regular at the public bathhouse since she moved nearby. She comments on how public baths are the best. In a memory, Tsubaki explains that her husband died a couple of years ago and she has returned to using her maiden name. She tells Keita that being a widow is not that big of a deal. Tsubaki tells Keita that he has nothing to worry about and can keep calling her by her name. She notes that things can be just like they were in the past. Back in the present, Tsubaki waves to the staff at the bathhouse. Keita repeats her words about things being like old times. Keita looks at his phone and feels like Tsubaki is subtly telling him not to pry into her personal life. Tsubaki tells Keita she will visit his place later to see the finished manga. She asks if he has uploaded it yet, and Keita tells her he hasn't. Keita shakes his head and tells Tsubaki no when she asks to come over. Tsubaki reacts with surprise. Keita explains that people will start talking if a woman casually enters a man's home. He says their previous meeting only happened because she was drunk. Tsubaki leans in and whispers into Keita's ear that she personally wouldn't have minded if it were him. Keita is visibly shocked by her statement. Tsubaki calls Keita an idiot while pinching and pulling at his cheek. Tsubaki tells Keita that watching him draw manga all night was a stimulating experience for her. She asks him if he felt the same way. Keita thinks Tsubaki's words are unfair. He checks the time and realizes he needs to leave while Tsubaki asks if he is in a rush. Keita explains that he has a part-time job shift today. Tsubaki turns to him and asks what kind of work he does. Keita tells her he works at a place like a cafe. Tsubaki tells him to let her know when the finished manga is uploaded as she heads off. Keita speaks with Risa Ni, the bathhouse receptionist. She mentions that he just missed Tsubaki. Risa-ni tells Keita she found a ring lying around in the changing room. Keita is startled by the sight of it. Risa-ni explains that she found the ring near the hair dryers. Keita takes the item from her in silence. Keita decides to contact Tsubaki to return the ring since she is likely worried about it. Risa-ni tells him to take care as he leaves. Keita sends a text to Tsubaki informing her that the bathhouse staff found something she might have left behind. While at his job, Keita waits for Tsubaki to reply to his message. He wonders if she is currently working. Keita stares at the ring lost in thought. Keita realizes the ring is a memento of Tsubaki's late husband and wonders about her feelings. Keita reflects on the pain of a sudden loss and the feelings of those left behind, admitting he could never truly understand such things through imagination alone. He questions if simply understanding the concept of loss in his head has any actual value. Keita recalls his editor telling him that his drawings focus too much on his own internal world rather than the reader. The memory continues with the editor explaining that manga is a form of communication and that Keita needs to imagine the feelings of others more. Keita questions if he ever even tried to do so. Keita sits at a table and lets out a long sigh as he waits for Tsubaki to reply to his message. Since Tsubaki is not responding, Keita decides he will try looking for her at the cafes near the station. He realizes there are not many places he needs to check. Keita tells himself that he will find her sooner or later if he keeps searching. Keita visits every cafe he knows, but Tsubaki is nowhere to be found. He sits alone on a bench feeling gloomy because he cannot get a hold of her. Keita looks at the wedding ring in his palm and wishes Tsubaki would notice that it is missing. Keita walks through the city feeling pitiful when someone suddenly calls out his name. Tsubaki appears in front of Keita wearing a bunny girl outfit and asks what he is doing there. Keita is completely stunned by her appearance. A flashback begins to a past event where an unexpected situation occurred. Tsubaki sits nearby and drinks while Keita works on a drawing for a project. Keita complains that he only ended up helping because she told everyone he could draw. Keita tells Tsubaki that he got stuck making a signboard because of her. Tsubaki laughs and points out that everyone was giving him praise for his work. Tsubaki asks Keita if he is blushing, which he quickly denies while trying to focus on his drawing. Keita remains silent as he looks back at Tsubaki. Back in the present, Keita asks Tsubaki about the revealing outfit she is wearing. Tsubaki asks Keita if he thinks the bunny suit is cute. Keita is flustered and asks her why she is dressed like that. Tsubaki explains that she works at a concept cafe and says she was not trying to hide her job. Keita realizes that this is the reason why he could not find her at any normal cafes. Tsubaki leans down and asks Keita what he is doing in a place like this. Keita presents the ring on a cloth and explains that Risa-ni found it at the bathhouse. He tells her it is an important item that she should not lose. Keita says the ring is her connection to her husband. Tsubaki stares at him in silence. Tsubaki calls out to Keita as he looks away feeling flustered. Tsubaki shows Keita her hand, revealing that she is already wearing her ring. She tells him that she did not actually lose anything. A loud shout of disbelief rings out from the cafe building. Inside the Rabbit-Toon Cafe, Tsubaki apologizes to Keita for the confusion. Tsubaki explains that the dropped ring actually belongs to a regular customer named Shibayama-san and says she will return it later. Keita slumps onto the bar counter and laments his habit of jumping to conclusions. Tsubaki tells him that his attempt to help was very sweet. Tsubaki thanks Keita for going out of his way to return the item. She explains that she had only left her smartphone in her locker. Keita starts to say Tsubaki's real name, but she quickly shushes him because she uses a different name at the cafe. Tsubaki offers Keita a drink on the house. Keita admits to himself that despite the misunderstanding, he is happy he came. Keita is confused as to why his drink is served in a graduated cylinder, while Tsubaki tells him to drink a lot. Keita takes a drink and tells Tsubaki that he is the one who should be thanking her. Keita admits that Tsubaki was right, and that he really does enjoy drawing manga after all. Keita admits that he still loves drawing despite the excuses he made or the setbacks he faced. Keita thinks back to their time together in the classroom and realizes that Tsubaki's presence changed everything for him. Tsubaki taps her phone against the bar counter. Tsubaki looks at her phone as the screen lights up. Keita shows Tsubaki a drawing on his phone and declares that he wants to push his skills as far as he can go. Keita tells Tsubaki that he specifically wants to create something that she would find interesting. In a memory, Keita works with intense focus on painting a large sign. Keita concentrates deeply as he continues his work on the project. Tsubaki watches Keita in silence as he stays absorbed in his drawing. In the past, Keita finishes the sign while Tsubaki sits nearby. In the present, Keita acknowledges that Tsubaki likely has her own struggles to deal with as well. A notification sounds on their phones, and they both look down to check the screens. Tsubaki smiles at her phone and tells Keita that he certainly took long enough to reach out. Tsubaki finds Keita's social media account and begins looking through it, causing him to blush in embarrassment. Tsubaki teases Keita about a drawing of a girl with a large chest and asks if that is his type. Keita frantically tells her to stop looking through his old work in front of him. A drawing tablet sits on a desk as a loud shout of surprise rings out. Ashihara is told to focus on a meeting, but she is distracted by a notification. She announces that Aotashi has uploaded a new manga, leading to a mix of confusion and annoyance from the other participants. Ashihara looks at her screen and holds her drawing pen. She reflects on the fact that she thought he had quit, but is glad to see her comrade is still drawing.